In this little tutorial, I'm going to show you how to create an explosion in After Effects and then make it into a prop in Cartoon Animator. So the first thing to do is create a new project. Let's call this Explosion. I'm going to make it a 1920 by 1080. I'm going to have it at 15 frames a second and 2 seconds long. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is make a new solid. And we'll call this Smoke. Type it in again. Let's call it Smoke Particles. Then we'll just make it white. Let's go OK. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is open up our effects. And then in the search bar we want to type in CC Sphere. Up here, so you want to drag and drop that onto your solid, and then change a few settings over in the left column for the sphere. So in the light we want to change the direction, so let's just move that over here to about 50, 55, and then we want to change the light heights to about 50, 55. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to duplicate this sphere. Just think there's a way to easily do this, otherwise we'll just go up here, go edit and then duplicate, and then we want to do is move it over a little bit and then reduce the radius down, so to about 130, 135, and just move it over just a little bit so we can see it behind. Okay, so we want to duplicate that again and just move it away a little bit. Then create a new adjustment layer, and we'll call this flat because we want to put a flat effect now onto the spheres. So go over to your effects and presets and type in threshold, so CC threshold, and drag and drop that onto the flat layer. Okay, now it's basically made a dual tone colour of the shape, so you can have a look at your settings here. So just going to see what blend with original is going to do. Okay, we'll fiddle around with that in a minute. Let's move these all a little bit closer together. Bring the threshold down a little bit more. Okay, that's probably a little bit better. Okay, so now we want to comp these all together, so we'll right click and we'll pre-compose this and make sure move all attributes is checked, because you want to move all those into the same composition. So we'll call this Smoke Particles. Okay. So now we want to create a little wiggle effect on this. So holding down the Alt button and clicking the stopwatch will bring up your expressions. So in there you want to type wiggle brackets 2, 10, and then just RAM preview that, and what you'll see that it's wiggling a little bit. Okay, so it doesn't look much at the moment, but it will look pretty good later. Let's do through that again. Okay, so now what we want to do is just change the rotation a little bit. So on the first keyframe, at the beginning of the sequence, we'll create a keyframe, and then we'll go to the very end of the sequence, and we'll put in another value, say 150, and it will just rotate a little bit as well. So it just gives it a little bit of movement. Okay. Now we'll create a new adjustment layer. because we'll change the colour slightly on this, and we'll call that lighting. And then just with the hue and saturation, we'll make that black just a little bit more grey. So there you go, we'll just make that 70. Okay, then we'll make that onto another pre-comp, so we'll select everything and pre-compose it, making sure move all attributes is clicked, and we'll call this smoke, particles, and then map. Okay, so we can just turn that off for a minute. So the next thing you want to do is make a new solid, and we'll call this particles. Alright then over in the effects and presets, we want to look up CC particle world and drag and drop that onto the layer. And this is where you can create all your particles, and it's a really good free plugin actually. So if you want to have a little click around, you can create some really cool effects. So we're just going to change a few settings here, and I'll probably tweak a few of these in a bit. So we'll just do the birth rate to 5, move along a little bit. Actually, and then we'll have birth rate at 0. Okay. And the physics, there's a few settings here you can play around with. So we'll have that on explosive. Gravity will make 0. Resistance will make 2. Let's just have a little look at that. There you go. You can see like a little explosion, but it hasn't really got, well, it hasn't got our little animation in it just yet. So in the particles and particle type, you want to go to textured square. Okay, and then what you want to do is look up texture, and then texture layer. You want to click on it, your smoke particles. And then you might have to wait a few seconds for it to show anything. Okay, what we'll do, we'll make a black solid behind all this because it's white on transparent, so it's going to be quite hard to see. So we'll move that to the bottom layer, and there you go. You can see our little particles there. Okay, so on the particle layer, there's a few more settings you can change here. So the birth size will make 3. And in the color map, we'll have origin consistent. Or constant, sorry. Okay, now you can see something's happening here. You can see it's now looking at our little animation of the circles that we did, and it's putting them into the particle world. So let's just change a few more settings here. So we have the depth size at 0.1%. Variation, size variation we'll have at 80, and then we'll change the opacity to 100. Okay, it's still a little bit hard to see what's going on. Then opacity map, let's just paint that out. It's a bit tricky actually to do this sometimes, so I'm just going to get it to the best I can. So you make that go dark grey. Okay. I'm just going to change the quality down just so we can see it a bit better. And just play it through, and there you go. That's our little animation, our little animated sequence. So that's how you make an explosion. We'll probably fiddle with the settings a little bit more. So I'm just going to make it so it's a little bit quicker. So I'm just going to open up the effects and then just move the little keyframe in a bit to about, say, 8 frames. And then let's have a look at this. So birth size, let's just make that 1. And particles, resistance, let's make that 4. I'm just tweaking a few settings here, so you can tweak these how you want and just play it through. And there you go, it's looking okay. But you can change a few more settings on this. I mean, that's not looking too bad. Play it through one more time. Now where it says animation, oh no, sorry, particle type, let's just change that to textured discs. So they're circles, so it's probably going to work out better. And there you go. It actually looks a little bit more toony now, so that looks a bit better. So I'm happy with the way that's looking. Okay, now what I'm going to do is go to the composition settings, and I'm going to make it so the composition is basically the same shape as the actual explosion. So it's going to be a little bit more of a square. Oops. So we're resizing everything, so I just need to uncheck the lock aspect ratio. Okay, you can probably make it a little bit more smaller. So I'll make it 900 by 900, and we'll just go OK and play that through, and that looks like it's all within inside that shape, so that's good. Now what we want to do is get rid of the black background, so just get rid of that, and then go to composition, add to render queue, and then in settings we can go to PNG sequence. There you go, PNG sequence, and then we'll just have alpha channel set just in case that makes a difference. Let's get it OK, and then we will make a new folder. We'll call this explosion, and then we'll render this out. So what it's doing now is it's rendering one PNG for every frame, and the project's set at 15 frames a second, so we're going to have around about 30 frames for this sequence. Let's go OK. Right then, so we'll make a new project. We'll make it 900 by 900. So this is in Photoshop. Then we'll go to create. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to find our exported sequence, and we'll select everything. So 20, well, there's 30 frames there. It starts at 0 and goes to 29. Then what we'll do is we'll drag and drop that all into After Effects, and then we'll click return, and it will import every single frame of that sequence as a layer inside Photoshop. Like that. And now what we want to do is kind of, there might be a different way of doing this, but it's gone in backwards to the sequence. So I now need to manually move all the images actually in order. So start from 0 to 29. So I might actually just fast forward this a little bit. Okay, now that's done, what you want to do is you want to save that as a PSD file. So go to File, Save As, go to our folder, make it PSD, and then we'll call that Explosion. Let's go to OK. Okay, so now we want to open up Cartoon Animator. Click on that, and let's let the spinny wheel finish. Okay, so on the left hand side we want to go to Create Media, and then we'll click on Prop, and then we'll locate our PSD file. So go to Explosion, find the PSD file, go to Open, okay, so now what we want to do is we want to basically show every single frame of this sequence on the timeline. So we'll click on Sprite Editor. Okay, so I've done something wrong here. Because it's all coming through as one image. So what I need to do now is to delete that. I'm going to go back to our PSD file. I can't think what it would be. Oh yeah, let's select everything, and then we'll make it into a new folder. It has to be inside a folder, so we'll call that Explosion, and then we'll save that again. So file, save as, and we'll save over the previous one. Yep, replace. Okay, and now we'll go back and we'll import the media. So select create media and then find the PSD file. Okay, so there you go, it's brought in just one frame there, which is great. So now what we want to do is we want to go to the sprite editor, and there you go, you can see every single frame now of that sprite. So every 2 frames on the timeline, we want to swap it out for a different sprite. So go forward 2 frames, choose a sprite, forward 2 frames again, and choose another sprite, and so on until we fill the timeline up with the sequence. So I'm just going to fast forward the video now because this bit might be a bit boring. Okay, so now we've done that and we'll just play it through, and there you go, you can see our little animated prop. Okay, so now what we want to do is make the project the same length as the sequence. That's 47 frames. I'll close that down. And now what we want to do is save that as a prop. So we go to prop, go open custom, and then click on the plus, and then that will save itself inside the custom folder for the props. So we'll give it a name, so we'll call it explosion, and then we'll just put mix up pixels in there. Okay, so test it, we'll make a new project and we'll drag and drop the explosion onto the stage mode, and then we'll make the project 47 frames long again, and then we'll just play that through. So the little props worked, which is great. So I'm just going to fast forward through the next bit. I'm just going to put together a very simple scene using the explosion and having it so the explosion happens and one of our characters appear. And there you go. That's how you create a very simple explosion effect in After Effects, and then bring it into Photoshop, and then save it as PSD file, and then inside Cartoon Animator make it into an animated prop.